Chapter 381, Undiscouraged. Wei Sujuo passed Tang Wuling without speaking a word. Xu Yucheng followed, staring at Tang Wuling with narrowed eyes. What the hell are you looking at? Beat it. Yu Yue said, shooting up from her seat. Xu Yucheng glanced at her coldly, then turned back to Tang Wuling. He raised his hand, pointed his thumb up, then turned it down. Yu Yue was about to explode, but Tang Wuling grabbed her arm. Tang Wuling looked straight into Xu Yucheng's arrogant gaze. We'll settle things on the stage. After the 5 rankers left, half of the class stood up and left as well. Shishi hung his head, his fists clenched tightly, steeling his resolve. He stood up and exited the classroom. Xu Shaoan looked to Tang Wuling anxiously, who returned her gaze with reassuring steadiness before standing up as well and leading his friends out. Tang Wuling had already told Yu Xinglan about the restriction placed on her. She watched the entire confrontation with cold detachment from her seat in the back. Big sis Xinglan, just what is the academy thinking? Xu Lizzie asked from beside her. She flicked her gaze to him. You still don't get it. The administration thinks very highly of Tang Wuling. Huh? And this is how they're showing it. Xu Lizzie was dumbstruck. Yes. They view him as very important. Yu Xinglan answered without hesitation. She got out from her seat and followed Tang Wuling out. Thoughts looped around endlessly in Tang Wuling's mind the entire day, but in the end they all focused on one thing. Just how can we win? The coming tournament would be a great challenge for him. If he didn't emerge victorious, then his status among his classmates would plummet and his reputation drags through mud. With all eyes watching him, there was no backing down now. Shishi rushed back to the working student dormitory, but he wasn't returning to his room. Instead, he headed straight for Yuan Yui's room and banged on the door with all his strength. What is it? Yuan Yui opened the door, but upon seeing it was Shishi, her expression instantly chilled and her eyes reflected wariness. Shishi's eyes were red, his nails digging into his palms as his entire body trembled from an unknown emotion. Upon seeing Yuan Yui, he stepped forward and bowed deeply. Please help me. Yuan Yui took a step back, still leery. Explain the situation to me first. Shishi sucked in a deep breath. Determination shone in his eyes as he resolutely said, please spar with me. I want to improve myself. Surprised, Yuan Yui asked, what's got you so worked up? Shishi didn't answer. He bowed to her once more. I beg of you, help me, please. Yuan Yui raised an eyebrow and looked him up and down. Shishi was clearly like a volcano, about to erupt at any given moment. All right. Fine. She nodded. Shishi raised his head, stunned. Then he let out a long breath of relief. Thank you. Let's spar then. I'll pay for all of the costs. Of course you are, snorted Yuan Yui. Tang Wuling was deep in contemplation while sitting on the forging table in his workshop when Yu Xinglan walked over. Tang Wuling, do you feel discouraged now? He raised his head. Yu Xinglan started with surprise. Instead of looking defeated, Tang Wuling's gaze held immeasurable willpower and determination. He shook his head. No, this is just another obstacle for me to surpass. When my martial soul awakened, it was blue silver grass, and I only had an innate soul power of rank 3. My family is utterly normal and didn't have money to support my cultivation. I began blacksmithing at 6 to earn enough money for a 10-year spirit soul, but then the spirit pagoda staff member told me that I could only afford a random spirit soul draw. It was from that draw that I got gold song. Do you know what the staff member told me back then? He said gold song is a defective spirit soul. No one had any hope for me. Even my parents tried to dissuade me from walking the path of a soul master. They wanted me to focus on blacksmithing instead. I possess innate divine strength, so they thought being an ordinary blacksmith suited me. A faint smile formed on his lips and he jumped off the forging table. I overcame all of it. He didn't need to say anything more. Everyone understood his meaning. He started out as a mediocre person, yet now, through his tenacity and hard efforts, he became the class president of Shrek Academy's first grade class. The coming tournament may pose a great challenge to him, but it was nothing in comparison with his martial soul being blue silver brass. Nothing compared to having a defective first spirit soul. He always forged forward, step by step, and this time would be no different. All right. I'll help you then. Gu Yue has already finished the design for your hand armor. I need a piece of star silver to make it. Yu Xinglan said. Tang Wuling's eyes lit up. Star silver? Will you make it in time? The match between the first and second grade was set to take place in a week, and the representative selection tournament in 3 days' time. With only 3 days, there was no telling whether she would succeed in making a battle armor part. Although spirit alloys were capable of maximizing the amplification effects of battle armor and opened the path for improving one-word armor in the future, the difficulty of crafting with it also increased proportionally. I'll give it a shot, answered Yu Xinglan. I took your divine foundation medal, so I have to return the favor. Okay, I'll begin forging star silver, said Tang Wuling. At that moment, a beeping noise sounded in the workshop. Tang Wuling took out his communicator to check who was calling him. Upon seeing the name on the screen, he immediately picked up the call. Teacher. Feng Wuyu's deep voice was transmitted through the line. Come see me. His words were short and concise. I'll head over right away. Tang Wuling turned to his companions. Elder Feng just called for me. I'll see what he wants, then come back right away. He left after saying this. Reaching Feng Wuyu's office, Tang Wuling knocked once then entered. He lowered his head in respect. Teacher, I heard what happened in your class. Sounds like the class president isn't that great. Feng Wuyu said. MN. That's right. I'm not qualified for the position. Tang Wuling smiled bitterly. He didn't bother explaining himself. With the situation coming to a head like this, explanations were useless. He had to settle the problem with action. Feng Wuyu snorted. Are you ready for the tournament? Yes, Tang Wuling answered. Feng Wuyu was taken aback, his eyes narrowing as he stared at Tang Wuling. I heard your opponents are quite something. Are you confident? Tang Wuling's eyes shined with courage. I have to be even if I'm not. His conviction was unshakable. That's good then. You have to face hardship head on. You'll grow a lot from this ordeal. Here, take this. Tang Wuling hurriedly reached out and caught the object Feng Wuyu tossed to him. It was a brilliant silver medal, specks of gold extending its silver aura. Star silver. He blurted out. Tang Wuling looked at Feng Wuyu. Teacher. Even without testing it, Tang Wuling could tell that it was an extremely high-quality piece. Its harmony rate was 90% at the very least. It's 99%. It's a masterpiece from my early years. There's no point just leaving it lying around, so I'm giving it to you. Tang Wuling was stunned. Warmth filled his heart. He had always thought Feng Wuyu was a harsh teacher and had never expected the old man to show such care and concern for him. Teacher, I can't accept this. Tang Wuling walked forward and placed the star silver on Feng Wuyu's desk. Feng Wuyu smiled. Where did all your greed go, kid? I thought you would just accept it right away instead of acting so politely. Tang Wuling scratched his head in embarrassment. I have my own pride too. What pride? Enough of that. Just accept it. Don't let it go to waste. Feng Wuyu grinned at him. A long sigh escaped Tang Wuling, and he shook his head. Teacher, you're right that I'm greedy, but that's because I grew up poor. Even so, I can't accept this. It's not that I'm embarrassed to accept it. I would never feel embarrassed with you, but it's because I'm a blacksmith. Feng Wuyu was dumbstruck, but he quickly understood what Tang Wuling meant and nodded. Excellent. Your heart isn't swayed so easily. I'm convinced that you really are confident now. He waved his hand and put the star silver back into his storage ring. In order to craft the best battle armor, one had to be involved in the crafting process regardless of whether it was as the blacksmith, designer, maker, or mechanic. Feng Wuyu understood the meaning behind Tang Wuling's words. He wanted to create the greatest battle armor possible for himself, so he had to be the one to forge the metal with his own hands. Chapter 382, a small bet. I was just about to try to forge star silver when you called. Teacher, the design for my one-word battle armor's right gauntlet is completed, so now I just need a high-quality piece of star silver to forge it. It would be of great help to me if you had any good star iron I could use. I won't ask for much. Just as much star iron as that piece of star silver you wanted to give me would be greatly appreciated. Tang Wuling said, a smile forming on his lips. Get out of here. Feng Wuyu barely restrained the impulse to kick Tang Wuling out of the room. He had held out a few words of praise, yet his disciple wasn't satisfied with that. Tang Wuling laughed. I know you have it, don't you? I'm willing to bet there aren't many blacksmiths in the entire world with a greater stash than you. Is there really a need to be stingy with me? Just hand it over, please. Who's being stingy here? Feng Wuyu's anger dissipated in the face of Tang Wuling's radiant smile. He took out some star iron and placed it on his desk. I don't have any more. Take it and go. Before I get angry. Feng Wuyu waved his hand in dismissal. Tang Wuling giggled at his teacher's resignation. When are you going to teach me how to forge 3 metal alloys? Feng Wuyu eyed him up and down. You haven't even mastered walking, and now you want to learn how to run? Wait until you can forge 10 different 2 metal alloys, spirit refined consistently, and forge a divine foundation metal. Then we'll talk about 3 metal alloys. Oh. I'm still far from that. Tang Wuling sighed, his head drooping. He made for the door, muttering to himself, I still have 2 of the 3 goals to complete. It's going to take me at least a year to do the other 2. Hold on a minute. Feng Wuyu shouted when he heard what Tang Wuling muttered. Huh? Is there something else? Tang Wuling looked back. You said you only have 2 goals left. Which one did you complete? Feng Wuyu stared at Tang Wuling wide-eyed. Impossible. Asking him to meet those 3 goals was harsh. Even I couldn't complete all of them until I reached the 6th rank. Feng Wuyu set those 3 requirements in an effort to put more pressure on Tang Wuling. Of the 3, learning to forge 10 different 2-metal alloys and becoming skilled at spirit refining were fairly easy to master and would come naturally with time. Tang Wuling had already succeeded once at spirit refining, but he hadn't practiced it since his first success. As far as the alloys went, he'd been practicing for a few days now and could forge a couple of them, yet he still muttered about completing one of the 3 requirements. Feng Wuyu never even considered the possibility that Tang Wuling had forged a divine foundation metal. A 6th-ranked blacksmith only had a sliver of a chance to succeed, and even a saint blacksmith had to rely more on luck than skill to forge a 2-metal divine foundation alloy. A fledgling 5th-ranked blacksmith succeeding was unheard of. Tang Wuling smirked, but remained silent. Feng Wuyu threw a bit of iron at Tang Wuling's head. What are you smiling for? Tell me before I beat your ass. Which one did you finish? Did you sneak off to Mu Chen to learn how to forge more alloys? Or did you secretly practice spirit refining? There's no way you did any of that with what little time you have. Why couldn't I have forged a divine foundation metal? Tang Wuling word stripped with condescension. Feng Wuyu rolled his eyes and snorted. In your dreams maybe, but this is reality. Wake up and tell me. Or did that not hurt? Tang Wuling looked wronged. Of course it hurt. How about we make a bet? If I manage to forge a divine foundation metal. Feng Wuyu glared at him. Still talking about divine foundation metals. Do you want another bump on your head? Teacher, you shouldn't bully kids. There's no way I can fight back against you. How about this? If I win the bet, you pay me 20,000 contribution points. I was penalized for the fight last time and I need to clear some debts. But the thing is, cultivating and blacksmithing is taking up all my time, so I can't earn more points. What if the academy expels me because I don't pay the fine? Feng Wuyu fought down his laughter at his disciples overacting and forced his face into a serious expression. Save it. You've successfully forged more than 1 alloy. 20,000 points is nothing if you sell some off. Besides, you're my disciple. Do you really think the academy would dare expel you? If you're too scared to bet with me, then I'll just go to grand teacher. Tang Wuling turned around to leave. Now you just hold on a minute. Who said I'm too scared? You little brat. Do you actually think that senile old fool Chuo has more guts than me? Fine. I accept your bet. Let's see if you really can forge a divine foundation metal. But first things first, what do I get if I win? Humph. You dare question me? Let's see what you can do. Tang Wuling's smile had all the character of a predator about to pounce. Teacher, I'll do anything you want if you win. Feng Wuyu thought about it for a moment before saying, all right, if I win, I get everything you forge in the next 3 months. That was an enormous sum. Even with Tang Wuling's current success rate, the number of alloys he could forge in 3 months clearly exceeded 20,000 contribution points. Deal. Tang Wuling knew his victory was assured. The stakes didn't matter. The sheer confidence that Tang Wuling displayed started to unnerve Feng Wuyu. Kid, did you really forge a divine foundation metal? Follow. Tang Wuling smiled proudly and he turned to leave. Feng Wuyu followed Tang Wuling back to his workshop. Doubt, curiosity, and excitement intermingled and growing with every step. Inside the workshop, Fu Yue, Xu Lizzie, Yu Xinglan, and Xu Shaoan were in the middle of discussing their battle armor designs. When they saw Feng Wuyu walking behind Tang Wuling, they shot up to their feet. Where is it? Feng Wu scanned the workshop. Tang Wuling looked to Yu Xinglan. Could you let Elder Feng see the jade silver? He can help appraise it. Yu Xinglan looked at him, then at Feng Wuyu. A second later, she took out the jade silver from her storage ring and presented it to Feng Wuyu. The moment Feng Wuyu saw it, his pupils contracted and his hand flew out to snatch it. He brought it close to his face for inspection. He stared at the gentle jade silver glow of the metal for a long time, before finally handing it back. He turned to Tang Wuling. You really did forge a divine foundation metal. Without another word, he turned around and left. From beginning to end, his face showed no emotion. Teacher, you see. Tang Wuling hastened to follow. Feng Wuyu glanced at him. I'll send you the points. Then he shoved the door of the workshop open and left, letting it slam shut behind him. After the door shut behind Feng Wuyu, Tang Wuling turned to his companions and made a victory sign with his hand. What's going on? Yu Yue asked. Tang Wuling smiled mischievously. Nothing. I just made a bet with him. A small bet. Nothing to worry about. The moment Feng Wuyu stepped out of Tang Wuling's workshop, his face contorted in annoyance. That kid really got me. Then his features softened into a smile of satisfaction. But it's good that he knows how to pull one over on people. He shook his head and chuckled. Kid, you really gave me a nice surprise. 3 days later in the first grade's classroom, Shen Yi announced from behind the lectern, in order to fully examine your combat abilities, Teacher Wu and I have decided for our selection tournament to be decided via real combat. Now, let's depart. The students stared blankly at her. Shouldn't we be fighting in a virtual space? We could get injured in live combat. Chapter 383, the selection tournament. Hushed whispers broke out in the classroom and everyone's gazes shifted towards Tang Wuling and his companions. He was the class president, the representative of the entire first grade, yet the 5 rankers had joined hands to usurp him. To the academy, this was a simple tournament. However, to Tang Wuling, the 5 rankers, and the rest of the first grade, the outcome of the selection tournament would determine the narrative of the class from then on. Tang Wuling sat in the front, his face a mask of indifference. By his side, Yu Yue wore a similar expression. Neither seemed to care about the announcement at all. Luo Dixing wore his standard polite smile. When he looked at Wu Suzhou, however, a silent conversation passed between them. Yang Niang lazed in his seat. Xu Yicheng looked gloomy like usual, as different from Luo Dixing as night and day. Zheng Yuren glared at Tang Wuling, her gaze like a predator about to devour him whole. Let's go, Shen Yi said. Everyone stand up. Tang Wuling shouted. Regardless of how precarious his position was right now, he still did his duty as the class president. The entire class of 103 students stood up and walked out in order. Everyone was bursting with excitement, eager to witness the battle between dragons and tigers. To most of the students, it didn't matter who won. The competition to choose the class president was different as it was possible to avoid confronting powerful foes. This tournament, on the other hand, would be a direct clash between giants. Whoever won would carry the banner of their class. Yu Xinglan followed at the back of the line, her complexion abnormally pale. She even needed Xu Lizzie's assistance to walk steady. Yet, in comparison to her weak state, her eyes shone with excitement. Big sis Xinglan, don't go. You should rest. I can go request a leave of absence for you. Xu Lizzie said softly. Yu Xinglan instantly turned towards him with fire in her glare. Fatty, don't make us lose face for the inner court. Xu Lizzie was stunned. Her words stabbed at him. All he could do was smile. Okay then. Shrek Academy had the most advanced starring facilities. Students could use them by paying a fee. The main benefits of this arena were that it was isolated and prevented energy from running wild. A 7-ringed healing type soul master was also always monitoring the facilities. The moment a participant suffered a grievous injury, staff members would extricate the person from the arena and treat their injuries. For some reason though, when the first grade class entered the facility, they only saw a single person. A pure and elegant beauty stood on the stage, long evergreen hair flowing down her back. With a slender figure and bright complexion full of life, she seemed to be in her 30s. Shen Yi and Wu Zhangkong quickly walked over the moment they saw her and bowed. Your Highness. Please, no need to stand on etiquette. The woman smiled gently at them, filling the room with comforting warmth. Tang Wuling was surprised. He stood at the front of the line, so he had heard how his teachers addressed the woman. Your Highness. Only titled Douluos are referred to like that. This beautiful woman is a titled Douluo. Tang Wuling was further shocked by the respect within Wu Zhangkong's normally icy eyes. That was all it took to convince Tang Wuling. This woman was a powerful titled Douluo. Just how many titled Douluo does Shrek have? Everyone, pay your respects to the esteemed Holy Spirit Douluo. Wu Zhangkong ordered. Greetings, Your Highness. Tang Wuling stepped forward and bowed. The rest of his classmates bowed a second later. The Holy Spirit Douluo. Wow. Her title is so cool. The Holy Spirit Douluo looked kindly upon them. You've come to the arena to compare notes, but you also need to display your strength and stimulate your potential. All right, enough of that. I'll leave you all to your matches. She then floated up into the air, drifting towards a tall chair at the fringe of the arena. Wu Zhangkong turned around to face the students, his face stern. This selection tournament will be held in public and will be judged fairly. There are 17 teams, so matches will be decided through lots. One team will get a pass. It will be a knockout tournament. Whoever the victor is today will represent our class against the second grade in 4 days. The representatives for the 4 professions will be the members of the class council. Let us begin. Tang Wuling went up and drew his lot. The empty lot has been drawn by Tang Wuling's team. He stared at the stick blankly. After getting off the stage, Tang Wuling sat down cross-legged, his expression wholly serene. His companions sat down beside him, all 6 of them meditating together. Shrek Academy lived up to its reputation. Even the first round of battles was fierce, every participant fighting hard to shine the brightest. The Holy Light Douluo acted as the tournament's referee today. She would make a move when a victor emerged, or someone was in dire straits. With a simple wave of her hand, light would descend on the arena and halt the match. What truly left everyone amazed was her healing ability. By the time the next match started, the participants of the previous match would be in perfect condition. The 8 matches of the first round took about an hour to finish. Luo Dixing's team breezed through their matchup as their opponent had immediately forfeited. Although they hadn't drawn the pass, the result was the same. In the second drawing, Luo Dixing's team drew the empty lot. Everyone's face scrunched up in disbelief as they began to understand what was going on. Considering that Tang Wuling's team had drawn the empty lot first and Luo Dixing's team, the tournament was clearly rigged so the 2 teams would only face each other in the finals. The tournament demanded teams of at least 5, so Tang Wuling, Yu Yue, Xu Shaoan, and Xu Lizhi stepped onto the stage. They had the first match of the second round. Their opponents was a team that had won the first round, though only barely. They understood how large the gap was between them and Tang Wuling's team. Tang Wuling controlled the flow of battle and served as the vanguard. Xu stood ready in the battlefield in wait of an opening, and Yu Yue provided ranged control. They achieved victory without much effort. The second round finished twice as fast as the first. 9 teams trickled down to 5, and the third round began. We surrender. We're forfeiting. Forfeit. Before any of the matches of the third round even began, the other 3 teams forfeited. It wasn't that they weren't confident, especially against Tang Wuling's team. However, they didn't wish to get in the way of the 5 rankers. They all understood that the rankers were unsatisfied with his leadership and targeting Tang Wuling. It was because of this that they thought it was better to step out of the way and let the final confrontation come quicker. Even if they managed to defeat Tang Wuling's team, the outcome wouldn't necessarily be good for them. Luo Dixing had already declared that they would crush Tang Wuling with their own hands. The Holy Spirit Douluo looked at them in surprise, but when she saw the sparks flying between the 2 remaining teams, she understood what happened. Okay. Since it's like this, we'll immediately begin the final match. Tang Wuling's team versus Luo Dixing's team, Wu Zhangkong announced. Tang Wuling looked up and met Wu Zhangkong's gaze. In his teacher's eyes, he saw encouragement and a fire hidden behind his icy expression. Wu Zhangkong could also see the conviction in Tang Wuling's eyes. The 2 teams of 5 ascended the stage and stood opposite of each other. Tang Wuling stood in the very front of his team's formation, and Yang Nyangsha stood at the front of his. When Yang Nyangsha met Tang Wuling's gaze, a chill ran down his spine. The final match of the tournament was about to begin. Whoever won would represent their grade in the match against the second grade. They would win honor and glory, and bear the weight of being their class's champions. Chapter 384, the decisive battle of the first grade. If every Soul Master's dream was to enter Shrek Academy, then it was the dream of all Soul Masters in Shrek Academy's outer court to enter the inner court. However, that was easier said than done. Getting in, even if it were a sliver of a chance, required 2 things: the unceasing tempering of the self and a chance encounter with good fortune. Yang Nyangsha trembled when he saw the fire blazing in Tang Wuling's eyes. Not a trace of anxiety or impatience manifested. Only burning ferocity prevailed. In fact, Tang Wuling's mask of calm had cracked to reveal his conviction, hot to the touch. His entire being seemed to be engulfed in flames, his determination shocking his foes. Yang Nyangsha wasn't the only one affected. All 5 rankers were struck astonished. They couldn't fathom how Tang Wuling could possess such fierce battle lust. Does he actually think he can win? The rankers had done their research on Tang Wuling's team. Tang Wuling was fairly strong but still possessed many weaknesses, the greatest being his martial soul. He also recently gained his 3rd soul ring. The only reason he could rise to their level was his strange bloodline. Rather, they saw Gu Yue as their greatest foe, for she had beaten Wu Situo during the cooldown of Hell White Tiger. But that was it. The other 3 members might as well be invisible. She was an average agility type soul master in their eyes, an insurmountable gap separating him from them. They found Xu Shaoan's ability to exploit openings favorable, but no matter how they looked at it, she must have gotten into Shrek Academy by a fluke. She was just too weak in everything else. According to their digging, she had been part of Tang Wuling's original team, so they surmised that Tang Wuling and Gu Yue had helped her get in. The only mystery was Xu Lizhi. All they could gather about him was his status as a support type soul master, one without much combat ability. Finally, there was Yi Xinglan. She seemed strong. Yet for some unknown reason, she had been forbidden from participating. As such, faced with such nameless opponents, they had no fear of Tang Wuling's team. However, the fighting spirit Tang Wuling displayed was baffling. Does he actually think they can win? Even against Wu Situo's Hell White Tiger? Get ready. I will begin the 5-second countdown. Wu Zhangkong's chilling tone came down like a bucket of ice water over the 5 rankers' heads. So what if he has fighting spirit? That's nothing in the face of true power. Each of their names were etched onto the genius youth's ranking. Moreover, Wu Situo was a super genius who entered the top 10 at 13, the youngest in history. No one else could compare with her at her age. She had 4 soul rings and twin martial souls. She was a dazzling star in Shrek Academy destined to enter the inner court. The 5 of them had brimmed with pride, yet their inability to seize the class president position crushed it. The dissatisfaction smoldered until it exploded into this decisive battle. Tang Wuling was quite strong, but nowhere near as strong as Gu Yue according to their evaluation. But even Gu Yue didn't enter their eyes. With her cultivation level, they refused to believe she could handle the 5 of them together. At best, she could stand toe-to-toe with Luo Dixing. All 5 rankers believed that Tang Wuling's true strength lay within his blacksmithing skill. The reason they hadn't rebelled against him at first was precisely due to this. Such a talented blacksmith was hard to come by, and they couldn't afford to sour their relationship with him. However, conflict arose between Tang Wuling, Luo Dixing, and Wu Situo. They found his ideas too impractical, so while Yang Nyangsha couldn't compare with Tang Wuling, he was enough for their needs. Having come to this conclusion, they no longer cared about crossing Tang Wuling. Luo Dixing chose to gather up the rest of the rankers and isolate Tang Wuling. For rankers like them, there was no backing down, only advancing forward. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Wu Zhangkong announced. 3 purple soul rings appeared around Tang Wuling, blue silver grass swarming out of the ground by his feet. The grass slithered to the front and formed a protective shield around his companion's belt. The rest of his teammates summoned their martial souls as well, glittering soul rings materializing around them one by one. 2. The spectator's surprise, Xu Shaoan now had a purple soul ring in addition to 2 yellow ones. But the rankers didn't notice. Tang Wuling had used his blue silver grass as a screen to block their vision. Tang Wuling had carefully planned out their opening moves to the tiniest details. No one but him thought such meticulous preparations would affect the tide of battle. Without skipping a beat, the 5 rankers summoned their martial souls as well. When both Wu Situo and Xu Yucheng revealed 4 soul rings, even the Holy Spirit Douluo was taken aback. 4 soul rings was nothing to her, but it was an astonishing achievement for a 13-year-old. Even Shrek Academy, the #1 academy on the continent, had few talents like them. Begin. Wu Zhangkong's shout marked the start of the first grade's battle for supremacy. Yang Nyangsha roared to the sky, his body swelling with strength as he transformed into a dust gold bear. He grew to 2 meters in height and was now covered in dark gold fur from head to toe. Like a wild beast, he charged at Tang Wuling. Light shimmered around Luo Dixing as he disappeared behind Yang Nyangsha, hiding behind the muscular bulk. Wu Situo shot out to the side like lightning, instantly overtaking Yang Nyangsha. There was no doubt that out of the 10 combatants, she was the fastest. Her winding path led her straight to the one who had defeated her before, Gu Yue. When it came to speed, Xu Yucheng was only second to Wu Situo, and he sprinted from the other side to form a pincer attack with her. Because he was a pure agility type, he could just keep up with her. Meanwhile, a green aura enveloped Zheng Yuren's body as she also burst into action. Although not as quick as the others, she brought along a green fog of death in her advance. Yang Nyangsha charged down the middle. Luo Dixing stayed in the center. Wu Situo and Xu Cheng rushed in from the side, and Zhang Yuan slowly advanced. Their actions held not a hint of unfamiliarity, their teamwork flawless. They hadn't been wasting time twiddling their thumbs the last few days. The five had ran drills to hone their teamwork, not to defeat Tang Wulin's team, but the second grades. Not once had they considered Tang Wulin's team a threat. There was a great difference in strength between grades at Shrek Academy, where each was separated by an age gap of 2 to 3 years. Rarely would a lower grade defeat an upper one. However, this year's class of new students was the most promising in the last century. Chapter 385, Tang Wulin's third soul skill. The rankers had come to the conclusion after much thought that improving their teamwork was essential to defeat the second grade. This was the best way to gain the achievements necessary for entering the inner court. The eyes of the spectating students sparkled with excitement. They're going in for the slaughter. In their opinion, only Tang Wulin and Gu Yue stood a chance against the combined assault of Wu Sijuo, Yang Nyangsha, and Shu Yicheng. However, it was 2 against 3. With combatants being eliminated once they suffered grievous injuries, they faced impossible odds. Faced with such powerful opponents, Tang Wulin showed neither fear nor hesitation. Instead, he advanced on Yang Nyangsha with calm indifference. Blue silver grass spread out to cover a large area around him. Then his third soul ring lit up, and the grass turned into a sea of gold. His third soul skill. The rankers had never witnessed Tang Wulin's third soul skill before. It was information that they couldn't dig up since he acquired it recently. Humans naturally feared the unknown, and the rankers were no exceptions. Wu Sijuo and Yang Nyangsha's footsteps faltered. Why is he using his third soul skill already? Isn't he afraid of exhausting himself? While those two were taken aback, Yu Yue's hands danced together to form complex seals. Pressing the two thumbs together, she twisted her hands in counter directions so that her fingers on her left hand pointed up, while those on her right pointed down. A wave of elemental energy gathered around her, converging into a frigid white light. The light pulsed, then rapidly shrunk until they condensed into icicles that shot towards Wu Sijuo and Shu Yicheng. A cold light flashed in Wu Sijuo's eyes. She suddenly accelerated, reaching her maximum speed in an instant. So what if you're using your third soul skill, Tang Wulin? He was beneath someone as talented and bold as her. In their analysis before the match, the 5 rankers concluded that Gu Yue was their most powerful opponent. Given enough time, her control over the elements could turn the tide of battle. Her strength truly was too frightening. Furthermore, without Gu Yue's support, Tang Wulin would collapse shortly after. This was why they decided that Gu Yue was their main target and to eliminate her as soon as possible. Hell Rush. Wu Sijuo's speed reached new heights even as her attack and defense power increased. Although Hell Rush was only her first soul skill, it was a powerful tool in her hands. Shu Yicheng shot forward as well, his figure blurring and leaving countless after images behind him. He rested his demon scythe on his shoulder. Its deadly blade gleamed with a dark purple luster. Wu Sijuo's and Shu Yicheng's aura of soul power met the incoming onslaught of icicles and destroyed them with little effort. Such weak icicles couldn't even touch them. A moment later, they penetrated through Tang Wulin's team's formation from opposing sides. Their target was Gu Yue. Even while resisting Tang Wulin's third soul skill, they aimed straight for her. She chose that moment to act. His body flickered forward to intercept Shu Yicheng, his light dragon dagger in hand. At the same time, all 3 of Gu Yue's soul rings lit up as she used elemental tide, elemental control, and elemental fusion simultaneously. Her control over the elements shot up to the peak. Gu Yue gathered light into her palm, then threw it at Shu Yicheng. His movement slowed and his sinister aura dimmed as he drew closer to the light. If Yue's Heng Yu were present, he would have been shocked. It was holy light. Not only that, her holy light was extremely similar to his soul skill. Although his holy light was still stronger, it was only by 20 or 30%. Shu Yicheng's demon scythe undoubtedly was of the darkness attribute, so this light was enough to suppress him despite not being particularly powerful. She took this chance to rush Shu Yicheng. In their battle plans, he was assigned with handling the immortal. Wu Sijuo arrived in front of Gu Yue at that moment. There wasn't enough time for Gu Yue to counterattack. She couldn't defend herself. Tang Wulin didn't pay any attention to his teammates. He charged at Yang Nyangsha, leaping forward to close the distance between them with his right fist rocketing toward Yang Nyangsha's chest. Yang Nyangsha smirked, stopping in place. He steeled his body, then his right fist punched out to meet Tang Wulin's. He was completely confident in his strength. While they were both power type soul masters, he refused to believe Tang Wulin could surpass him in strength. Tang Wulin's eyes began to change, gold seeping into his irises at the same time as light rippled across Tang Wulin's arm. Golden scales appeared in place of the light, transforming his fist into the golden dragon claw as it rendered through the air. Yang Nyangsha bellowed, a dark gold radiance shimmering around his fist. His objective was simple. He just needed to keep Tang Wulin occupied. In the meantime, his teammates could wipe out the rest. Then, victory would be theirs. Yang Nyangsha was a meticulous person who was not a risk taker. He didn't punch with all his strength, withholding just enough to meet his objective. However, inches before their fists clashed, Tang Wulin disappeared. Yang Nyangsha stumbled forward in surprise, booms rumbling in the wake of his fist hitting air. The feeling of being tricked made his blood boil. At that same instant, Wu Sijuo reached Gu Yue and unleashed 100 hell claws. The claws closed in on Gu Yue, packed so densely it left her no chance to escape. Wu Sijuo was on high alert, wary that Tang Wulin's third soul skill would activate at any moment. Luo Gixing stood before his 4 companions. Wu Sijuo and Shu Yicheng, you two will attack Gu Yue once the battle starts. Gu Yue can also control space, so if she tries to teleport away while you're attacking her, immediately switch targets to the other 3. It should be a breeze for you two to eliminate the rest. Once Tang Wulin and Gu Yue's support is gone, it won't matter where she teleports to. Victory will be ours. Zhang Yuan, you'll stick with me. Even if she teleports to us, the 2 of us will be able to take her on. If she doesn't teleport away, then, Wu Sijuo, it'll be your chance to make up for your defeat. As the distance between Wu Sijuo and Gu Yue diminished, she could finally make out Gu Yue's expression. She was neither surprised nor panicked. It wasn't a facade either. She exuded a calm confidence instead. How's she going to take my attack with her body? She can't defend herself in time with the elements. Single element attacks were useless against someone as powerful as Wu Sijuo, but attacks of multiple elements took time to prepare. Gu Yue's only choice was to teleport away at that moment. Knowing this, Wu Sijuo marked Xu Xiaoyuan and Xu Lizzie in the corner of her eye. Wu Sijuo saw silver light gather around Gu Yue and tensed, preparing to switch her targets. However, instead of watching Gu Yue teleport, the telltale sign of space distorting opened up to a brilliant gold light. A golden scaled fist shot out. No particular technique behind its movement. It was a simple and crude punch. Wu Sijuo could feel the tremendous power behind a fist at just a foot away from it, but she was going too fast. It was too late to evade it now. A boom tore through the arena. The 100 claws disintegrated and the collision sent Wu Sijuo reeling backward. Tang Wulin stood tall in front of Gu Yue. She had teleported him away from his clash with Yang Nyangsha to ambush Wu Sijuo. Watching from a distance, Luo Gixing frowned. He hadn't been able to do anything to stop Gu Yue. She was beating him at his own forte. With his third soul skill, Luo Gixing could teleport his comrades to his side. It was because of this skill that he was able to establish himself on the genius youth rankings. However, there were limitations to this soul skill. If the target resisted, then he couldn't teleport them. Yet, Gu Yue could manipulate space just as skillfully as him. Chapter 386. Shishi's bravery. The moment Luo Gixing saw the golden grass covering the floor stir, he realized that it was a trap. Tang Wulin finally used his third soul skill. He teamed up with Gu Yue to deal with Wu Sijuo. Luo Gixing could teleport Wu Sijuo back to his side with spatial retreat, but he couldn't use the soul skill continuously. If he teleported Wu Sijuo back to him, then Shu Yicheng would be left isolated behind enemy lines. Conflicted about what to do, his decision came late. He chose to believe in Wu Sijuo's strength and trust she could handle Tang Wulin and Gu Yue for a time. Then the sooner Shu Yicheng defeated Shishi, then the faster he could regroup with Wu Sijuo to take care of Tang Wulin and Gu Yue. He ran some calculations in his head and came to the conclusion that with Yang Nyangsha, Zhang Yuan, and him backing the 2 up, victory was certain. Shishi intercepted Shu Yicheng. Gu Yue's light attack had slowed the immortal enough for him to catch up. Shu Yicheng scoffed at Shishi's approach. He slashed out a shadowy beam at Shishi with his demon scythe. Shishi was merely a hindrance, so he decided to quickly chop Shishi apart before continuing his attack on Gu Yue. However, as the shadowy beam flew toward Shishi, his body began to sway and his figure multiplied. He was using Ghost Shadow Perplexing Step. He sent out a light dragon blade of his own. It pierced through the shadow beam and onward to Shu Yicheng. Shu Yicheng frowned as he lowered his scythe and his figure flickered. Instead of using a footwork technique like Ghost Shadow Perplexing Step, he was advancing with pure speed. He left after images in his wake as he dashed forward. He sliced apart the light dragon blade and sent back another onslaught of dark violet shadow beams. The beams overlapped to form a giant net of death that collapsed onto Shishi. Shu Yicheng's 4 soul rings may have all been yellow, but he still had 4. This attack saturated the air with his soul power, which suppressed Shishi Shishi's speed. The only safest choice for Shishi was to retreat in this situation, but Gu Yue and Tang Wulin were right behind him. Retreat was not an option. Inside of his workshop, Tang Wulin stood around a table with his teammates. Wei Sijuo and Xu Yicheng are very fast, so they'll definitely be rushing us to get some early eliminations. If we want to win, we need to stop them and defeat either one of them as quickly as possible. Our only chance at victory depends on it. Wei Sijuo is the strongest of them and the greatest threat to us with her Hell White Tiger. Gu Yue and I will work together to handle her. We'll create a situation where Luo Gixing can't teleport Wei Sijuo out without sacrificing Xu Yicheng. But keeping Xu Yicheng occupied is our biggest problem right now. Shishi, Xiaoan, how long would the two of you be able to hold out against him if you work together? I can handle him alone. I'm certain of it. Shishi said confidently. Light Dragon Storm. Shishi turned into a shining whirlwind of death to meet the onslaught from the Shadow Blade beams. He's facing it head-on. Many of the spectators, including Wu Zhangkong, frowned. 3 rings against 4 was a hopeless battle, especially when the latter specialized in attack power. The gap between their cultivation levels was too immense. Shishi gave up on using Ghost Shadow perplexing step to face that attacked directly instead. He was going all in on in this clash. The instant the two collided, the Light Dragon Storm began to collapse. Light dispelled darkness, but darkness devoured light. Shishi's Light Dragon dagger had never been on the same level as Xu Yicheng's Demon Scythe, not to mention the gap in their soul power ranks. The outcome of their clash was predetermined. After a series of ear-piercing booms, Light Dragon Storm was dispelled and the scythe found its way right above Shishi's head, slicing down to wreak the life of its next victim. Wu Zhangkong glanced at the referee, the Holy Spirit Douluo, but she continued to watch calmly without raising a single finger. Xu Yicheng even hesitated for a split second as he slashed down. When everything was said and done, he and Shishi were still classmates. Although this was live combat, he didn't expect anyone to die. But the call never came from the teachers and neither did Shishi surrender. His scythe tore through Shishi, leaving behind nothing but wisps of smoke. No blood was spilled. Xu Yicheng's eyebrows jumped up in surprise. Then he snorted. So he still had another card up his sleeve. His scythe slashed through nothing but air, which hissed in the blade's wake. Although he hadn't defeated Shishi with that strike, he was still confident in his victory. Gu Yue was right in front of him now, so Shishi had to come out if he charged her. A brutal clanging filled the air as Shishi became visible again in midair as he intercepted Xu Yicheng. He crossed his 2 daggers together and accepted the attack with a grunt. To Xu Yicheng's surprise, Shishi wasn't sent flying backward. Instead, his eyes flashed crimson and his body exploded with power. He used Twin Dragon Storm to stop Xu Yicheng's advance. Fury filled Xu Yicheng. He thumped the handle of his scythe into the ground as his soul ring slid out and a dark violet beam flew out. The moment the beam appeared, Shishi felt as if he was being pulled toward it. It struck him in midair, knocking him out of Twin Dragon Storm. He coughed up a mouthful of blood as he slid to the side from the impact of the attack. Without taking a single second to recover, he used Ghost Shadow perplexing track to close the distance between them, thrusting his daggers right at Xu Yicheng's neck. You're just an arrow at the end of its flight. Xu Yicheng sneered as he slashed his scythe down at Shishi. Xu Yicheng's judgment was accurate. Shishi had been injured after one of his clones had been defeated. Then he was further weakened when he was forced to take on that attack. After suffering so much damage, he was running on fumes. Fortunately for Shishi, Xu Yicheng didn't care about defeating him. He only cared about breaking through and regrouping with Wu Sijuo. Since the very beginning of the exchange, not once had Xu Yicheng considered Shishi a threat. In the eyes of their classmates, the fact that Shishi could have struck Xu Yicheng for so long was reason enough to be proud. However, none held any hope for him. Just as he was falling back, Shishi suddenly exploded with speed as if he had never been injured, and pushed himself into the trajectory of the scythe. The scythe sliced into his left shoulder, nearly cutting his arm off, and pierced through the other side. Blood sprayed onto Xu Yicheng, leaving him stunned. But in the moment his mind went blank, a golden dagger stabbed into his shoulder. Light exploded from the dagger as Shishi used the Light Dragon Blade. All Xu Yicheng managed to do was divert all of the soul power in him to defend against the dagger, but it was already stabbed into him. When their soul power collided, the two of them were sent flying backward. Chapter 387, All Out. Rays of gold seeped into Xu Yicheng at an alarming rate, mixing with the darkness of his frail body and sending his muscles into a spasm. He collapsed onto the ground. A moment later, Shishi sank to the floor as well. A beam of light enveloped his body and transported him out of the arena. His complexion could rival snow and pain seared every inch of his body, but a proud smile tugged at the corner of his lips. If it were a one-on-one battle with more space to move around, it would have taken much longer to decide the battle. However, this was a team event. As such, he had succeeded in taking out Xu Yicheng. A thundering explosion. Shishi flew backwards in the air and collided with the arena's barrier. He groaned, blood seeping out of his nose and mouth. You're too weak, said Yuan and Yui, cold enough to freeze. Shishi gritted his teeth as he struggled to stand. Without a word, he charged at her. This scene had played out countless times. His body had long since been littered with bruises and lacerations. But not once did he relent. No matter how tattered he was, he would push himself back on his feet and launch his body at Yuan and Yui. He neither complained about the pain nor did he hesitate in the face of more. Futile as it was, Shishi refused to back down. Indeed, he didn't stop. Not until his body was completely drained of strength. Not until he collapsed and his shaking limbs were numb and lame. However, at this point he couldn't even curl his pinky finger anymore. As Yuan and Yui approached him, the way she looked at him changed. Why are doing this? I want to help my friends win the tournament. I have to go all out, croaked Shishi. The only way I can grow strong enough is by learning from you. If you're prepared to give it your all, then, in the span of a moment, a will of ice materialized and zipped towards Xu Yicheng without making a sound. The timing was impeccable, as expected from Xu Xiaoan. Silver light flashed around Xu Yicheng as Luo Gixing finally used spatial retreat. Although Yang Nyangsha was only 10 meters away from Xu Yicheng, that was 10 meters too far. He would never have made it in time to save their weakened teammate, and Luo Gixing couldn't afford to sit idly as he was eliminated. The second Xu Yicheng disappeared to safety, a furious hiss filled the air. Tang Wulin's punch sent Wu Sijuo flying. Then golden vines shot out of the ground to impale her. Although Wu Sijuo was an agility type, it was impossible for her to evade this attack. Her only option had been to defend herself with an attack of her own. But to her surprise, the golden blue silver grass was extraordinarily tough and left no openings. If she wasn't careful, then she would be restrained. Faced with these obstacles, Wu Sijuo had no choice but to use her third soul skill, Hell Slash, and break through by force. Before she could activate it, however, a golden strand of grass had struck her from behind. On the other hand, the grass that had attempted to shackle her movement retreated, evading her Hell Slash. She thrust out her palms and switched her martial soul, White Tiger Diamond transformation, letting out a beastly roar. Wu Sijuo flipped around to swipe at her pursuers, Tang Wulin and Gu Yue. Gu Yue held her signature ice spear composed of ice, fire, and wind. Upon release, the fire component exploded and accelerated the icicle to breakneck speeds. Following that, the wind component kicked in and sped it up even further. Wu Sijuo slapped the approaching projectile, smashing it to smithereens, but she didn't come out unscathed. She flinched from the impact, her movements growing sluggish as a chill invaded her body. In that split-second opening, Tang Wulin worked in unison with his blue silver grass to attack from both the front and the rear. His golden soul ring lit up as he activated golden dragon body and a radiant aura burst from his body. It looked as if his entire being were lit ablaze. He clenched his claw into a fist and punched at Wu Sijuo while making a pulling motion with his left hand. He was also using the Tang Sect's secret art, controlling Crane, capturing Dragon. Then he turned his attention to Yang Nyangsha, who was madly charging his way. His eyes flashed purple and Yang Nyangsha stumbled, nearly tripping. Humph. Driven into a corner, Wu Sijuo decided to show off her power. She didn't care about the grass's rear assault. She circulated soul power into her palm and held it out, ready to receive Tang Wulin's second punch. A boom tore through the air. Tang Wulin stood firm and immovable, but Wu Sijuo retreated 3 steps backward. Although her soul power exceeded Tang Wulin's, she had just taken Gu Yue's attack and the amplification effects of golden dragon body completely overshadowed those of White Tiger Diamond transformation. While she recovered from the clash, the blue silver grass zipped toward her like lightning, binding her body in a vice-like grip. Wu Sijuo sent all her strength into her arms, struggling to escape. Break. In her mind, there was no way some measly blue silver grass could restrain her while White Tiger Diamond transformation was in effect, even if this was Tang Wulin's third soul skill. However, the more she struggled, the more brilliantly the grass shined golden. The grass showed no sign of tearing. This is bad. It's his spirit soul. Wu Sijue finally realized what was going on, but it was too late. Tang Wuling arrived before her, his golden dragon claw swinging toward her head. In the face of his claw, even iron would flatten, not to mention bone. Because Luo Gixing had recently used spatial retreat, it was impossible to teleport Wu Sijue out of danger. Recently recovering from the effects of purple demon eyes, Yang Nyangsha resumed his charge at Tang Wuling. However, there were still 3 meters separating them. It was impossible for him to make it in time to save Wu Sijue. You can only rely on yourself. Tang Wuling recalled the words of his father from long ago during his attack. Fire roared in Wu Sijue's eyes as light exploded from her body, repelling Tang Wuling and destroying her golden shackles. She caught up to Tang Wuling in an instant and finally unleashed her soul fusion skill, Hell White Tiger. It wasn't her first time using the skill, yet the overwhelming might she exuded elicited many cries of alarm from spectating students. Wu Sijue's Hell White Tiger was a skill that lifted her strength far above those of her peers. It was this skill that crystallized her position as the ranker team's supporting pillar. As long as they had the Hell White Tiger, they were invincible. During these events, the Holy Spirit Douluo watched with rapt attention. She now lay before her, wrapped in a cocoon of light that obscured his figure. After witnessing Wu Sijue's activation of Hell White Tiger, she gave a subtle nod of approval. Hell White Tiger allowed Wu Sijue to display strength that exceeded a 5-ring Soul King's. It was extremely rare for a 13-year-old to possess such power, but the Holy Spirit Douluo also noticed Gu Yue's retreating figure even as Tang Wuling's fist was in the process of thrusting forward. She withdrew all the way back to Xu Shaoyun's side, and the 2 girls joined hands. Icy light swirled around and swallowed their bodies whole. What are those 2 girls doing? Little did she know, these actions had been sketched in advance. In a team planning session, Tang Wuling had proclaimed that he would handle Wu Sijue's Hell White Tiger. If he put every ounce of energy into the confrontation, he might be able to suppress her until her transformation ended. Tang Wuling had then instructed the rest of his team to deal with the remaining rankers. Meanwhile, Wu Sijue chased after Tang Wuling, but in doing so, she blocked Yang Nyangsha's charge. Tang Wuling retreated, reaching into his back pocket to retrieve 2 buns. Gu Yue and Xu Shaoyun also took out a bun each. Without hesitation, Tang Wuling popped them into his mouth, chewed, and swallowed. Strength surged through his body. A layer of red mixed in with his golden scales, and his eyes glowed a crimson gold. Now he truly looked on fire. He straightened his shoulders and stood tall, giving off a more mature aura. His bones popped, eerie and unsettling, as the scales on his arm grew larger. His top ripped apart and revealed a well-toned body underneath covered in glowing golden lines. Golden scales peppered his entire right arm, extending halfway across his chest. He moved his arms in circles, and a dragon's roar arose from deep within his body. His impressive aura became 3 times as majestic as before. Even in her Hell White Tiger form, Wu Sijue instinctually felt an inkling of fear when facing him. Yang Nyangsha was awed, his stare never leaving Tang Wuling. What is he doing? How did his aura become so mighty? Yang Nyangsha no longer dared to attack him. Instinct told him to absolutely avoid Tang Wuling's golden dragon claw. Chapter 388, Battle Armor of Resplendent Light. Upon closer inspection of Tang Wuling's golden claw, Yang Nyangsha's pupils dilated, his jaw dropping in one undignified motion. A starry light manifested on the back of the claw and spread to his forearm. Once the light dimmed, it seemed apparent a transformation had occurred. An additional layer of golden scales peppered his forearm, 3 sharp plates protruding from the side. The scale armor was imposing and valiant. Is that battle armor? Countless people cried out in alarm off stage. It wasn't just any ordinary one-word battle armor either. It had arose from his body. That was possible with spirit-refined 2-word battle armor. Wu Sijue froze in place as she raised her claw up to block his punch, a single thought permeating the fabric of her mind. He did it. He really did it. It wasn't just spirit-refined 2-word battle armor that could appear from one's body. 1-word armor made of spirit alloys also had that feature. How is this possible? How did he actually succeed? He would need at least a 5th rank maker to craft it. This was why she had broken off from his group back then. She had thought he had bitten off more than he could chew. Yet before her very eyes was proof of the contrary. Yi Xinglan stared at the piece of metal before her. Specks of silver twinkled on its surface as if it contained the cosmos and the power of the stars. He really did it. He forged a piece of 91% harmony star silver. Under all that pressure, he advanced step by step and succeeded. That guy. Lizzie, prepare to aid me at any moment, she said, turning to her teammate. Lizzie hesitated before saying, Big Sis England, isn't this too hard for you? You might be able to craft a 1-word battle armor as a 5th rank maker, but this isn't just 1,000 refined metal. This is a spirit alloy. It's way harder to work with. Yi Xinglan shot him a sharp look. He can forge a divine foundation alloy, so why can't I craft a piece of 1-word battle armor from spirit alloy? Enough nonsense. Get ready. She flicked her gaze back to the star silver, determination blazing within her eyes. She was stubborn and proud. Having been part of the inner court, she possessed an uncompromising will. The only reason she had been quick to snatch it up was because it was a divine foundation metal. The moment she acted, she resolved herself to help Tang Wuling complete his battle armor. In her mind, that was the only way she could repay him for such a treasure. In a flash of light, bright enough to dazzle, her star god sword materialized in her hand. It shined more brilliantly than it had 3 years ago. 3 purple soul rings revolving around it. Following a flick of her hand, the sword sliced through the air with a hiss. Its tip glowing brilliantly enough to rattle the sun. Not wasting a second, she jumped straight into action. Before long, she had sliced the metal into the basic shapes of the hand and forearm pieces, the metal starry resplendence reflecting off of her blade. When Tang Wuling, Shi, and Gu Yue laid their eyes on it, they were struck with awe. Yi Xinglan shut her eyes, clearing out distracting thoughts and leaving only the design blueprint she had so carefully studied within her mind. Precision was key in the crafting of the armor, and where it mattered the most was for the circuit core. There was no room for error. The slightest mistake would throw off the compatibility between the alloy and the circuit core. Her technique, soul power, spiritual power, and perception were required to come together in order to generate success. Therefore, the profession with the most requirements was undoubtedly the mecha maker. Tang Wuling could sense the change in her. She had fused her being with her surroundings and became one with the world. She drew every last drop of her soul power to support her body. The fact that she could do this was a testament to her strength. Although she had yet to possess 4 soul rings, Tang Wuling was certain it was only a matter of time. Yi Xinglan suddenly stepped forward, her eyes bursting open and reflecting the splendor of both her star god sword and the star silver. She thrust out her sword as fast as lightning, the sharp edge driving into the metal in one clear stab. Long threads of silver light swarmed around her sword, forming what appeared to be a giant hand holding the star silver aloft. Yi Xinglan nimbly danced around and sprinkled more threads of starlight onto the star silver. Detailed markings gradually appeared on the surface of the metal, which grew increasingly brilliant with each emergence. These markings, however, were shallow. The star silver was like a proud young maiden who refused to yield to her man. While spirit alloys were several times stronger than ordinary metals, since they were forged from multiple metals to give rise to superior properties, the maker needed to possess a thorough understanding of the alloy to craft with it. Not only that, they needed sufficient soul power and spiritual power to carve out the circuit core. This was what made crafting battle armor so difficult. Tang Wuling knitted his brows as he watched the scene play out before him. Star silver was much harder to forge than he had expected, especially so for this 91% harmony rate piece. Similarly, Yi Xinglan's star god sword was struggling to cut through it, which would prolong the armor crafting process and lower the chance of success. Can she last long enough? Crafting battle armor was a taxing process. Only after overcoming many hurdles had Tang Wuling been able to breathe life and spirit into the star silver. But in order to craft battle armor with it, Yi Xinglan had to improve its vitality by arousing those 2 components. If Tang Wuling was this piece of star silver's father, then Yi Xinglan was its adoptive mother. She was the one who would raise it to maturity, turning it from a clumsy eaglet to a majestic eagle that soared high in the sky. It was impossible to say who had the harder job. Both were indispensable. In the process of branding life to the metal, a single error was the dividing line between trash and treasure. Hundreds of thousands of starlight threads overlapped and reinforced one another, finally leaving a mark deep enough for the circuit core. Each mark had to take into account the character of star silver to transform its internal structure, an extremely complex task. Yi Xinglan steadily and gently sliced up the metal with the threads of overlapping starlight. Her fundamentals were strong. Tang Wuling sighed in admiration at her soul power control. It was rare for someone as young as her to possess such skill. He understood now why why she didn't use a normal knife to carve out the circuit core. By utilizing her Star God sword instead, she could also practice her sword technique. If she's always been training like this, then it's no wonder she's so strong. As expected from someone from the Unicourt, time crawled forward an hour passed, then 2, then 3. Finally at the 5th hour, the markings of the star silver had grown from shallow to deep, a simple design to a complex one. Every single carved line was now connected, intertwining and resonating with one another. The star silver shined brighter than ever, specks of dazzling starlight dancing over its body in an aura-like manner. The breath of life was strong within it. As its creator, Tang Wuling could sense its emotions, could see the eagle enjoying the miracle of flight for the first time. Chapter 389. Starlight threads draw the finished battle armor. After observing each of Yinglin's steps, every slice and stab of her Star God sword, Tang Wuling understood the importance of being involved in the crafting process. Without doing so, one would never grasp the essence of their battle armor. Only through true comprehension could one fuse with it and bring out its full potential. This is battle armor, my very own battle armor. Yinglin, do your best. 7 hours in, Yinglin's sword finally slowed. The circuit core carving was halfway completed. However, she didn't have enough soul power to finish it off. Not skipping a beat, she reached out a hand to Lizzie, throwing the pork bun he subsequently gave her into her mouth. Meanwhile, her sword never paused, its magnificence never waning as it steadily released threads of starlight. The recovery pork bun replenished both her soul power and physical strength, a major boon to her. 3 minutes later, she stuffed another pork bun into her mouth. For the next hour, she would eat a pork bun every 3 minutes or so. This was the only way she could maintain her strength to finish the carving. Yet her soul power was consumed faster than it was replenished. To Tang Wuling's alarm, he could see her belly swelling like a balloon. Unfortunately, not everyone's stomach was as great at digesting as his. By now, she had eaten 20 buns, which was a far greater amount than her normal meal. The way things were progressing, it was only a matter of time before she reached her limit. Although food created by a soul master replenished one's energy, it was still food in the end. Eating too much would be harmful. Yinglin was in a sticky situation. Her digestion couldn't keep up with how much she gobbled up, and the buns weren't providing enough soul power to cover her expenditure. She would fail at crafting the battle armor at this rate. Tang Wuling had thought such a situation might occur, so he had pulled Yinglin aside beforehand with questions, but she spoke confidently for her success, not leaving any room to argue. All he could do now was believe in her. Yinglin extended her left hand once more, but this time, her fingers twitched, her limb frozen in a halfway reach before she retracted it. She couldn't eat another bite. She had hit her limit with 20 buns. Any more, and she feared it would disrupt her control over her Star God sword. Without a supplementary source of soul power, her reserves dried up. Beads of sweat formed on her forehead, her brows scrunched in concentration as she forced herself to maintain her crafting tempo. She carved line after line into the metal without pause. Beam bun. Yinglin shouted. Lizzie hesitated, but used his third soul skill in the end, calling forth a bloodthirst beam bun. Yinglin took a deep breath before throwing it into her mouth. Bloodthirst beam bun was Lizzie's most potent soul skill. Yinglin's aura transformed after she ate it, and her weak soul power fluctuations exploded with power, her physical strength rapidly climbing to the point where it surpassed her limits. Certainly, one soul power doubled after consuming the bloodthirst beam bun, but that effect was secondary to the boost in physical strength and blood essence. Following that, Yinglin's bloated belly rapidly shrunk, the boost to her blood essence increasing her digestive ability. With the pork buns digested and absorbed, another burst of strength flooded her body. Her Star God sword shined more brilliantly than ever, the threads of starlight released from each slash thicker than the ones before it. Every stroke of her sword was bold and decisive, and the speed in which the piece of battle armor took shape accelerated. However, Tang Wuling didn't relax. In fact, he was more nervous than ever. The effect of the beam buns weren't long-lasting, and once it wore off, her strength would tank. At that point, failure was inevitable. Can she finish it in the next 3 minutes? This was the limit he calculated for her. That said, she was already working as fast as possible. Before long, 2 minutes passed. Although she made much progress in that period, at this rate, she wouldn't finish. For that reason, Yinglin pushed herself past her limits. She slashed her Star God sword furiously, letting out countless threads of light that wove together in a net. Before, it took 100,000 overlapping threads to cut into the star silver. Now it only took 100. Her efforts paid off. The gauntlets formed crisp and clear. Starlight swallowed it whole, its surface twinkling resplendently. But such progress came with a price. With each stroke of her sword followed another wave of trembles coursing through her body. The bloodthirst beam bun's effect was beginning to pass. Not yet. Just a bit more. Tang Wuling subconsciously took a step forward, his fists clenched. You have to succeed. He took in Yinglin's face. Despite her weakening appearance, forehead drenched in sweat, her focus was as sharp as a blade, her will unshakable. Tang Wuling paused in his steps as he was walking toward her. The determination in her eyes filled him with confidence. At a time like this, belief was important. Another. Yinglin shouted. Big sis Yinglin. Lizzie's voice was soft like the wind, a shiver zipping down his spine. No back talking. Just give it. With gritted teeth, Lizzie summoned another bloodthirst beam bun and handed it over to her. She's going to eat too? Can she handle it? Tang Wuling was shocked. Whether it was him, Gu Yue, Shi, or Xu Shaoan, they all approved of her now. For the sake of her comrades, she was willing to risk eating a second bloodthirst beam bun. They were delighted to have someone like her in their team. The gaze Gu Yue directed at Yinglin softened, the resentment she held for the other girl fading into the air. Xu Shaoan stared in admiration, and a whirlpool of emotions filled Shi. After Yinglin ate the second beam bun, her strength had shot up to its peak, then surpassed it. Each thread of starlight was thicker than before. They cut into the metal swiftly, countless lines appearing on the star silver with each passing second. Several holes opened up in the metal, a golden glow surrounding gauntlet. Is she going to succeed? No one could be sure and watched with bated breath. The final juncture approached. Yinglin bit her lower lip, her eyes shining like the most brilliant of stars. From beginning to end, her focus had never deviated from her task, her sword never wavering as she focused on her conviction. The countless threads of starlight had sliced up the metal, shaping it into a radiant gauntlet. Tang Wuling. Yinglin shouted. In the blink of an eye, he was by her side. Without any hesitation, he slashed open the palm of his right hand and dripped blood onto the gauntlet. The metal drank it up, its golden color taking on a tint of crimson. Rays of light burst from the surface, illuminating the entire workshop like a miniature sun. Tang Wuling stepped forward and made a pulling gesture with his right hand. Threads of starlight shot out and wrapped around it. The threads sliced into his skin, leaving behind a complex design. Before blood could even seep out of the cuts, his hand was enveloped in the starlight. Daggers of pain seared the nerves in that limb. Then, he felt a familiar aura. It grew timid as it sensed his bloodline, the pain transforming into heaviness. Chapter 390. Blood essence reversal. Golden dragon shocks the heavens. Yinglin slashed the star silver 9 more times. Streams of light burst from the metal in an instant, and it soared into the air. A dragon roared from within Tang Wuling's right hand, his blood essence trembling with excitement. A pattern of golden lines surfaced on his skin. As he subconsciously raised his right hand, a golden light enveloped it and traveled up his forearm. She succeeded. Everyone was entranced by the scene. Yinglin fell on her butt, her complexion pale, but her eyes never left the miracle around Tang Wuling's hand. The golden light around his hand condensed, vaguely taking on the form of a dragon's head. It curled around his forearm and roared, shining brighter than before. They had succeeded. They successfully created the first piece of Tang Wuling's battle armor. Battle armor. Tang Wuling's right gauntlet drew everyone's eyes like moths to a flame. The 3 protruding blades added an aggressive touch, emphasizing the sharpness and danger of his enlarged claws. Its power was obvious with just a glance. Normally, in order to possess a body capable of equipping a full set of one-word battle armor, one must have at least 5 soul rings. Tang Wuling currently had 3. Logic dictated that he shouldn't be able to equip even a single piece of armor. However, his gauntlet was made of spirit alloy. As such, the requirements to use it were lower. Besides that, his right hand was the strongest part of his body, and with the power of the golden dragon king flowing through his veins, his body was sturdier than an ordinary person's. These factors all came together to produce the strength necessary to equip the gauntlet. At the start, the entire first grade had been convinced of Tang Wuling's team's inevitable defeat. After this amazing display, with the spectacle before them emblazoned vividly into their minds, doubt crept into their hearts. It's actually battle armor, the thing we're all aiming for. I can't believe the class president would keep quiet about this. Oh right. He's an amazing blacksmith. Maybe he really is suited for being class president. Recovering from her shock, Wu Sijue threw her massive body at Tang Wuling, swiping a claw at him with lightning speed. So what if you have battle armor? I have a soul fusion skill. It's just one piece anyway. Even if it's made of spirit alloys, there's still a limit. Tang Wuling formed a fist with his claw and punched forward. The ground cracked beneath his feet, the surrounding air whipping into a frenzy as his fist shot out. Although there was soul power imbued in this punch, its true power came from his absolute strength. A shockwave erupted at the moment of collision. At the same time, the spectating students hung from the edge of their seats. What they were viewing might be the deciding clash. The Hell White Tiger's claw swipe sent Tang Wuling crashing into the arena's barrier. Oh. The spectators exclaimed in unison, so the Hell White Tiger is stronger in the end. Even with battle armor, he can't win. However, the students with good eyes were able to pick up one important detail. Although Tang Wuling was sent flying backward, the Hell White Tiger's paw flickered transparent upon impact. Is the Hell White Tiger really the one who won that clash? Tang Wuling answered their questions in the next moment. He took advantage of the barrier's elasticity as he slammed into it and bounced right back, the draconic roar from his body growing louder and piercing through the air. Blood essence reversal. His body shined a radiant gold as his blood essence thrashed and thundered, giving him the appearance of golden ball of flames. That's Wu Sijue felt as if she were facing a blazing sun. A split second later, Tang Wuling arrived in front of her. The Hell White Tiger raised its head, its form no longer flickering. Finally feeling threatened, she gathered all her strength into one swipe of the claw. An impassioned roar pierced the hearts and ears of everyone present, the rage and depth of it forcing them to squeeze their eyes shut for a second. When they opened them again, they saw an enormous illusory dragon stretched wide across the entire stage, roaring at the heavens. Its existence shook the world. Tang Wuling had used his battle armor as a distraction to eat 2 bloodthirsting buns and complete the technique taught to him by his grand teacher, Dragon Shocks the Heavens. When Choishi used it, it was Scarlet Dragon Shocks the Heavens. But for Tang Wuling, it was Golden Dragon Shocks the Heavens. The Golden Dragon released another thundering roar, its regal might weighing down on everyone present. The Hell White Tiger no longer seemed so massive in its presence. The two clashed in an explosion of light. Everyone squinted their eyes but to no avail, the sharp glare too blinding to see what was happening. A boom tore through the air and a figure rolled out. It was Dark Bear Yang Zheng Yuan burst out next. Her poison fog had been dispersed by the chaotic energy, so she regrouped at the edge of the arena with Luo Gixing. Her face was twisted into a scowl. Never had it crossed her mind Tang Wuling was hiding such a powerful move. Just having battle armor alone wasn't enough to achieve such might. Just who's going to win? This one question echoed through the minds of everyone watching. The light gradually died down, the forms of Wu Sijue and Tang Wuling growing crisper and more defined by the second. Wu Sijue staggered back a few steps before falling to her knees. Tang Wuling was in no better state, and he fell to his butt with his face pale as ash. The two locked gazes. Tang Wuling's face was grim, but his eyes blazed with fighting spirit. On the other hand, Wu Sijue had no life to her stare, still in denial about what had just happened. In a one-on-one battle where she had used Hell White Tiger, she tasted defeat. Her belief that she was the strongest among her peers was overturned today. Another person had been swept up by the explosion and was transported to the Holy Spirit Douluo's side. Shu Yicheng. If the Holy Spirit Douluo hadn't saved him, he would have suffered grave injuries. However, this meant that he was the second person to be eliminated from the battle. The blizzard that Wu Yue and Xu Xiaoan had been casting to target the rankers was dispersed by the explosion. Tang Wuling hadn't expected such an outcome. Wu Yue stood in front of Xu Xiaoan and Xu Lizzie, crumbling ice and earth walls in front of her. It had taken all her strength to defend them from the chaotic energies. 2 beams of light shot out from the Holy Spirit Douluo. Then Tang Wuling and Wu Sijue appeared at her side. They were both eliminated. It was 3 versus 3 now. Yang Nyangsha crawled up from the floor, his complexion pale, blood trickling out of the corner of his mouth. He had received explosions blast directly. Even if he had a sturdy body, he had still taken the most collateral damage. Yet despite his tattered state, he still possessed some fighting power. Zheng Yuan wore an ugly expression. Without Yang Nyangsha acting as the vanguard, she knew she was in a precarious position due to her poison specialty and lack of any real defensive ability. Like Yang Nyangsha, a stream of blood trickled out of the corner of her mouth. Of the Ranker team, only Luo Gixing was in perfect condition. Thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Also leave a comment down below with suggestions on what novels to read.